This is wonderful. We're having an exploration into separate realities in real time.
So welcome everyone. Here's Jamie Smart, and he can't hear a word I'm saying, but welcome, Jamie.
Now, I don't know what Anne has just said. For all I know, I'm not even going to start. But what I can tell you is, as I was reflecting on, because the title of this session is From Chaos to Clarity, and it was kind of a reflection of the fact that we're living at a time when things are changing very, very fast. You know, I did a talk to a group of sixth formers a while ago, and it really, really struck me. You know, I was there and the various teachers were there and that sort of thing. And it struck me that all the young people who were there were all digital natives. They'd all been born since the internet was invented in 1991. Everyone there had grown up using the internet. And all the teachers and me and all the older people there, we weren't digital natives. And so it struck me that whoever was going to be in a good position to talk about what the future is going to be like and what you should do and what it holds, it wasn't going to be me or the teachers. And so it raised a really, really interesting point, which is, if, you know, we're currently going through, in the UK, we've got Brexit and we've got Extinction Rebellion going on, all kinds of different things happening. And often it looks like the people who are supposed to be in charge aren't necessarily that certain about what they're doing or what the right thing to do is or anything like that. And that can seem pretty chaotic. And at the same time, each of us is being, you know, asked to make decisions about things and about the way forward and what we want to do and that sort of thing. And so I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about, well, when I was in my teens and approaching adulthood, what would I have loved to know that I just didn't know then? What would I have loved to know? And what I came up with as the answer, as I was reflecting on this, the answer that I came up with was kind of a motto. And I was talking to a friend of mine, this is years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was telling me about all kinds of hassles she was going through because she had things she wanted to do, but people were telling her that she shouldn't go in that direction, she should go in this direction, even though her heart was telling her that she wanted to do something different. And you know, people were putting up obstacles and that sort of thing. And I said, oh, well, I've got a motto, and you can borrow my motto if you like. It's kind of helpful for this sort of thing. And she said, well, what's your motto? And I said, well, my motto, it's really simple. It's just three things. My motto is be who you are, do what you love, don't take any shit from anyone. And she's like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly it. So I thought, well, actually, if I could just send like one text message, a short one sentence text message to the me of a million years ago who was, you know, approaching adulthood and that sort of thing, what would that text message be? I guess it would be who you are, do what you love, and don't take any shit from anyone. And so I thought what we could do in this session is kind of dive into that, have a look at those three elements and what I mean by that, and how it can actually be very, very practical for navigating what is an uncertain world. You know, things are changing at quite a pace. We live in times where no one's entirely sure what the world's going to look like, you know, a year from now, never mind 10 years from now. So I thought we could look at those three elements of it. And I'm just going to kind of freestyle on that and see what shows up as I talk about it. So let's start with the first part of it, which is be who you are, be yourself, be who you are. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you're gonna, if any of us are gonna stand any chance of being who we are, then, oh, and here's the other thing I wanted to mention. just before I get into that, because it really relates to it. What I'm going to suggest is that being yourself and following your enthusiasms and being true to yourself, not taking any crap from anyone, turns out to be what the world needs. Like the world needs, like, you know, there's 7 billion of us on the planet. I'm reminded there's a quote from a spiritual teacher from a long time ago called Teilhard de Chardin. And he said, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I always liked that. And then as time has unfolded, I've thought of that slightly differently. And so I would rephrase that. And the way I would put it is, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're one spiritual being having 7 billion human experiences. Now, here's the thing. I know what you may be thinking. You may be thinking, hang on a second. I really liked the motto, be who you are, do what you love, don't take any shit from everyone. That sounded really good. That sounded very practical, really down to earth. And now you're saying we're one spiritual being having 7 billion human experiences. You lost me. Well, let me land the plane with that. How it looks to me is that, you know, well, and this is kind of interesting, you know, I don't know if you've seen kind of optical illusions or that sort of thing, but it turns out that the way our perception works is, and this was discovered in the 1850s by a neuroscientist, well, the kind of the grandfather of neuroscience, a guy called Hermann Helmholtz, German. And he was studying the nervous system. And what he realized was that we don't experience reality directly. In fact, our system, our you know, our whole being receives information, and that information arrives through our sensory systems, through our eyes, our ears, our taste buds, our whatever our nostril equivalent of nose buds are, our skin, our proprioceptive sense. So we receive data, and then our minds go, what's my best guess at what must be out there for me to be receiving this data? Okay, so it seems to us like we're looking out through our eyes at a world out there. Like that's what it seems to me right now. I'm sitting here and I'm looking out through my eyes and I can see my computer and the camera on the screen, and I can see the lights and the room around me. For practical purposes, that's true. That is, you know, that's got a good fit and match to the world that I'm occupying. But at a technical level, how it actually works is that data is pouring in through your senses. And then deep within your psychological and spiritual properties, a process is taking place where you take a guess of what you think is out there. And you infer what must be out there for this data to be showing up. And I'll give you a great example of this. If you've ever had the experience of walking down the street and you see one of your buddies or one of your friends and you start waving at them, and then they get a little closer and you realize it's not them, and then you're like pretending to scratch your face or whatever. It wasn't like you thought that's probably them and then you changed your mind. You saw them. You actually saw them. And then when they got closer, your brain or your mind or whatever just went, oh, scratch that. It's not them. Well, this is a universal experience. We've all had that. But what we overlook is the fact that we're actually doing that all the time. We're doing that all the time. Every moment of the day, that's what's happening. And it's testament to how effectively you do that. The most of the time, you don't even notice that you're doing it. Most of the time, it's absolutely not obvious that we're walking around in an internally generated perceptual reality and experiencing it as though it's an actual reality, but we are. So that gets us where? Well, where that gets us is, you can hold out your hand and say, okay, yeah, that's my hand. And it's got the back of the hand and the front of the hand. And you can look at your hand and you can look at your arm, but you're not your arm. You can say your name, but you're not your name. You can touch your head, but you're not your head. Who you are is the one that's experiencing them. Who you are is the one that's experiencing them. And that's how it kind of seems to us a lot of the time as well, that almost like, yeah, I've got my body, but I'm actually kind of the guy sitting behind the eyes driving the thing. But actually, even that idea of a little person sitting inside operating the machinery, operating the hands and that sort of thing, that's not you either. That's what's called a self-concept or a self-image, but that's not you either. You're the one who's experiencing that. And so when I talk about who you really are is that sense of I amness. It's that feeling of I amness. So when you say, whatever your name is, I am Bob, or I am Jenny, or I am Laura, or I am Mark or Matt or whatever, you're not your name. Who you are is that sense of I amness, that sense of being. Or when you say, I am happy, or I am sad, or I am annoyed, or I am peaceful, or I am tired, you're not actually who you are. Isn't happy, sad, annoyed, peaceful, tired. Who you are is the one that's experiencing that sense of I amness, that sense. That's who you are. And or maybe, depending on what you've picked up over the years you've been on this planet, you might think like, I am clever, or I am stupid, or I am pretty, or I'm ugly, or I'm tall, or I'm short, or I'm fat, or I'm thin, all these different I ams. But you aren't any of those things, those objects, those labels. Who you are is the one that's experiencing them. So why is this important? Well, this is important because what it means is that who you really are isn't vulnerable to anything from this world, can't be harmed by anything in this world, can't be helped by anything in this world, doesn't need anything. Because who you really are is spiritual. Who you really are is that essence, that I amness. And one of the biggest mistakes we make innocently is we believe that who we are is the labels or objects that we're looking at, that we're thinking about, that we're focusing on, when who we really are is the one that's experiencing those. And the reason that's so valuable to know is twofold. And here's the thing, we all get captured by that. We all think that it's happening. We all get caught up in that. But in any moment, we have the capacity to remember who we really are. And the cool thing about that is that who you really are is the source of insight and realization, is the source of love and connection. It's the source of peace and well-being. It's the source of resilience. It's the source of all of it. That's who you really are. And so you can relax, because here's the thing, on the physical realm, we've evolved from hundreds of thousands of generations of ancestors. Okay. Like the fact that you're even here listening to this means that you come from a long line of ancestors who managed to survive at least until breeding age. Okay, on a planet where most creatures die before they reach breeding age. And every single one of your ancestors reached breeding age and managed to have sex at least once and pass on their genetic material. And you come from a long, unbroken line of pairs of creatures that managed to do that, okay? Hundreds of thousands or millions of times in succession, over and over and over again. So you are built for reality. You're built for a world where we don't know what's around the next corner, when we don't know what's going to happen. And actually, most of our ancestors have had horrendous experience of life growing up compared to us. Like, we're some of the most privileged people in history. Geez, the fact that you're watching and listening to this means you have access to a computer. Most people for all of history never had anything like that. They lived dreadful, short, painful lives that were very, very hard. And I know a lot of people do that today, but it's getting better. And the fact is, you're built for reality. You're beautifully adapted for reality. So the other thing that relates to that is that you're also connected to, as well as being connected to that source of resilience and peace and love and insight and realization and intelligence, you're also connected to a source of wisdom and guidance, okay? Which is why it's actually essential that you be who you are, because that source of wisdom and guidance is very, very specific to you. Now, it's universal, like its source is the consciousness that everyone is animated by. Like, just like all 7 billion of us on this planet are walking around in gravity, like there's one gravitational field that's acting on all of us. Every single one of us is animated by that I amness, by that consciousness. It's one consciousness. And how it shows up for you is context specific to what's going on for you in your world, in your life. It's delivered precisely for the conditions and circumstances and world that you find yourself in. So the fact that you're animated by that one consciousness means that you have access to exactly what you need when you need it. It's there within you. So be who you are turns out to be very, very practical. So let's look at the next bit, which is do what you love. Do what you love. Now, there's this beautiful thing, which is the word enthusiasm. You know, when you're enthusiastic about stuff, you're like, oh man, I really want to do that, or I really love doing this, or man, I really like this book or this game or this sport or whatever it might be, this band. Well, that's enthusiasm. That's the stuff that you're enthusiastic about, the stuff you want to do, even though you don't have a good reason to do it, but it's just like, oh man, I enjoy it so much. That feeling of enthusiasm turns out to have its own very good reasons for existing. And it's an emanation from who you really are. It's like a guide. I remember I was doing a talk, this is years ago, to like 515 to 19-year-olds at a high school. And I was speaking at school assembly, right? And so the head teacher, whoever, went out first, and he's talking to them. And I noticed as the head teacher was talking, none of these young people were listening. They were all just having side conversations and looking at their phones and this sort of thing. But the teacher just kept talking, and I was like, oh, he's basically like a teacher-shaped jukebox. Like there's no interaction. I like, oh my God, that's terrible. I didn't realize this is what I was going to be dealing with. So I think, oh, what can I do? I'm like, okay, wisdom and intelligence, do your stuff. So I get up on stage. I said, good morning. I said, I'm Jamie. I said, and you're probably wondering what I was wondering before I came up here, which is, what has a middle-aged man got to tell a group of 15 to 19-year-olds that's going to be relevant? And so I started thinking, well, what was interesting and important to me when I was your age? And I thought, well, it was basically three things. Number one, connecting with my mates and having fun, hanging out with my friends. Number two, trying to figure out what I was going to do when I left school. And number three, sex. Now, the moment I said sex, everyone starts laughing, and suddenly they were very, very interested. They were laughing, they were shocked. I said, is that still the same three? And some people were like not knowing they're not used to being talked to. I said, hang on a second. This is yes, this is no. Is that still the same three? They're like, yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, here's what I thought we'd do for this, chunk of time we've got. Now, let me ask you a question. If I could show you a way that you could do stuff that you love to do and maybe even get paid for it, would that be interesting to you? And about 80% of the people put up their hand. They're like, yeah, that's interesting to me. I was like, okay, good enough. Let's do that. Well, here's the thing. It turns out that our enthusiasms, the word enthusiasm, comes from two Greek words, en theos, and what it translates as is the God within. And that feeling of enthusiasm is almost like a signal from the heart of your being saying, you're on the right track. This is a good direction. This is your, and here's the thing, the stuff that you're enthusiastic about, often the purpose of that enthusiasm is to guide you to something else. So I'll give you an example. Years and years and years ago, I was reading about this stuff called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and it was all about like influencing people and this sort of thing. But I just found it fascinating. Now, I didn't know that I would one day become a trainer and a speaker and a writer. I didn't know that. I was just fascinated with this weird psychological stuff, but I followed that fascination. And what it led me to is the work that I do now. But it didn't have a sticker on the box that said, if you do this, you will find the work you enjoy. And no, that enthusiasm was the sticker on the box, that feeling of, oh man, I just want to do that. And the beautiful thing, I call it like your authentic desires. It's the stuff that you want to do, even though you don't necessarily have any good reason to do it, or you don't know why, you just want to do it. So one of the things that we can all do is just become more alert to those authentic desires, those enthusiasms, those things that we want just for their own sake, those things that we're interested in or excited about or enthusiastic about, just for their own sake. Because what I'm going to suggest is that those enthusiasms, your enthusiasms, have their own reason for existing. They're connected to an intelligence which knows much more about you and your life and your future and the world we live in than our conscious intellectual minds know, and that our teachers know, and that our, the people telling us what we should do with our future know. Your own enthusiasms are like a signpost pointing you in the right direction. And they're an emanation from that consciousness within, that who you really are. So the first one, be who you are. Second one, do what you love. And here's the thing. the things that you love today, the enthusiasms that draw you and pull you in a certain direction, they may just lead you to something like there are things that I was passionate about 15 years ago that I'm just not interested in now, but they serve their own purpose in getting me to a certain point. It's the same with you. That there are things that you're enthusiastic about or excited about or fascinated with or interested in today. You may not be in 3 years' time, but it'll be something else. And the things that you were fascinated about today, if you follow them, they'll guide you. It's trustworthy. And if you're thinking, oh, well, yeah, I don't have anything I'm fascinated with. Like I can relate to that. I've been through times where I'm like, just everything seems sort of beige. And it's kind of like, yeah, there's nothing. And in those times, it can be helpful just to become sensitive to what's drawing you, to what's pulling you. So it might be something that you've never even thought of before. You're flicking through a website or something and something catches your eye and you're kind of interested in it, or a particular piece of music comes on. You think, oh, I've never heard that, kind of like it. And you go and look it up. It's sort of like detective work in a way. You do a bit of uncovering, a bit of Sherlock Holmesing, and you find out what those passions and enthusiasms are. And then you give them a little bit of space. You try them out. See, a lot of times we don't know until we try things out, whether we like them or not. We may have an idea of, oh, I'd love to do this or I'd love to do that. But until we give it a go, we don't know. And this is something that's really worth underlining, is that there are things you can discover by taking action and doing things then you're never going to figure out in the privacy of your own head. I'll say it again. There are things you can discover by taking action that you're never going to figure out in the privacy of your own head. Because the thing is, when you take action, when you do things, when you try things, even if it's scary, when you try things, you learn, you get real world feedback and you learn stuff. And here's the thing. So be who you are, do what you love. Oftentimes, I remember once, so I had this idea, right? And it had been with me for a while, which was to create something which I called the World Clarity Project, which was the idea to get this understanding that we're talking about out into the world and established and that sort of thing. But I was nervous and insecure. And the reason I was nervous and insecure about it is I thought, well, who am I to do that? I don't know how to do that. And what if it all goes wrong? It'll be so embarrassing. And I'll be on record as having said it and it's all screwed up and that sort of thing. But then one day I suddenly realized, oh, your feelings don't know about the future. Your feelings just know about the perceptual reality you're experiencing in this moment. And the perceptual reality you're experiencing in this moment is being generated by thought, by the principle of thought. Now, when I say the principle of thought, I don't mean the little thoughts running through your head. I mean the thing that's creating your experience of the room that you're sitting in or the car that you're driving in. I'm talking about the power that's creating your experience of your physical body and of who you are and all your sense of self and all that sort of stuff. Thought is the power that's creating the notion of a future and a past and all that sort of stuff. It's all being generated real time, moment to moment to moment. And here's the thing. Your feelings are letting you know about the thought goggles that you're wearing at any moment. At any moment, your experience of life is thought generated and your feelings are giving you 100% real-time feedback on the goggles you're wearing, not about what you're looking at, not about what you're thinking about. They're letting you know about the goggles you're wearing. So this is what I saw. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh yeah, but what if it screwed up? What if it went wrong? I suddenly realized, oh, those feelings of insecurity, those feelings of who am I to be doing that, imposter syndrome, those aren't letting me know about the future where I screw everything up. They're letting me know about the goggles I'm wearing right now. Now, here's the amazing thing. As soon as you see that, doesn't necessarily make you feel any less afraid. You still can feel uncomfortable, but it reminds you that you're connected to courage. Courage is right there within you. It's from the French word for heart. You've got heart, and it's courage, the willingness to take action and move forward in spite of feeling afraid. That comes right from the heart of your being. Comes right from the heart of your being. Because who you really are can't be hurt or damaged or harmed. Now, let me be clear about that. Your physical body can. Physical bodies can definitely get hurt and harmed and damaged. That's why you should wear your seatbelts and, be careful near the edges of cliffs, and, don't drink chemicals that have that sticker on them and that sort of thing. Like, that's good common sense. But, your physical body can be harmed. And so our feelings of insecurity and fear and that sort of thing, and anxiety for that matter, their purpose is to protect your physical body real time, right now, from real stuff in your environment. It isn't to protect you from something happening 3 months from now, or to protect you from something that happened 3 years ago. It's to let you know about what's going on right now, real time, physical, okay? So your physical body can be harmed, and that's why we have sometimes feelings of fear and insecurity and worry and anxiety, and that's totally appropriate. But who you really are cannot be harmed or damaged in any way at all. Can't be hurt. And what this means is, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And you can try stuff. You can experiment. You can try things out and see what happens, and you will learn. Be who you are. Do what you love. And here's the thing, the path from chaos to clarity, how to navigate in times of uncertainty and volatility and complexity in the strange world that we're living in at the moment. It's pretty amazing, but it's sort of also like a Marvel comic. It turns out that combination of be who you are and do what you love is like a compass that can guide you into your evolving future, which gets us to the third point. Be who you are, do what you love, don't take any shit from anyone. So here's the thing. The warning stroke guarantee is that if you're being true to yourself and you're doing what you love, you're likely to run up against obstacles. You're likely to come into conflict with people who don't want you to do that, who want you to do it their way or something like that, or who have other ideas for you. You're even likely to piss some people off, okay? And that's okay. I mean, you can be kind and compassionate while pissing people off. You can be respectful and thoughtful while doing what makes sense to you rather than what makes sense to somebody else. Because here's the thing. The world that we're living into is not operating on many of the rules that absolutely made sense to our parents and their parents and that sort of thing. I'll give you an example. I was having a coaching session with a woman, and I've written about her in my book. I can use names and specifics. So Christina she was working as an auditor. So she had a job basically in an accountancy type firm. But what she wanted to do is she wanted to be a nutritionist. She's passionate about nutrition. She has an Instagram account with like, I don't know, 30,000 followers. When I spoke to her, this is a couple of years ago, it's way more now, 27,000 followers, something like that. And what she would do is she would post photographs of the different plates of food that she was making, different recipes and that sort of thing, as well as different exercises she was doing. Lots of people like to watch and listen. I think it's called Fork in Fit. It's yeah, Christina Moy. Anyway, so so she's got this Instagram following. It's her passion. She's doing it. She's creating this stuff and has all these followers. But what she hasn't done yet, when I spoke to her, she hadn't kind of pulled the trigger and started doing it professionally. She wasn't getting paid for it. So I was asking her the kind of questions I ask people when I'm coaching them. And I said, well, you know, what would you, and her thing was, she came from, had very traditional parents. And she was really, really worried about disappointing them and letting them down. And she was also really afraid of, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? So I said to her, well, here are some of the questions I sometimes ask people around this kind of thing. I said, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? She goes, oh, I would start my nutritional therapy business. I said, okay, what would you do if you knew it was okay to fail? She was like, oh, I would definitely start my nutritional therapy business. I said, okay, well then the only issue has been that you didn't know that it's okay to fail, like that actually trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't work is a crucial part of the learning process. And she said, well, yeah, but the thing is, I'm really scared of letting my parents down. They think I should get a nice, safe job as an auditor or as an accountant. Now, at the time, I was writing my book Results, and I had this table, this piece of research that was done in 2013, and they were looking at what jobs are most likely to disappear because they're being automated or robotized or AI'd and taken over by algorithms. And they had a list of 700 job roles ranging from the most likely to be automated to the least likely to be automated. So I said, okay, what's the job you're doing at the moment? She said, auditor. So we look at auditor. Auditor and accounts are one of the jobs most likely to be automated. I said, okay, what do you want to do? She said, nutritional therapist. We look at it. It's one of the most difficult jobs for a computer to do because it relies on social intelligence. It relies on perceptiveness. It relies on creativity. So here's the thing. The jobs that her parents considered to be a safe job, a job for life, a secure job, were actually the ones most likely to be automated. And the thing that her heart was drawing her towards, that she was inspired about, that she was passionate about, were the things that are actually least likely to be automated, the safest job. But if she was what she was doing, being who she is, doing what she loved, but her parents were giving her crap about it, not in a horrible way, like they were looking out for what they considered to be her best interests. They were just wrong about that. So here's the thing. If you're being who you are, doing what you love, you will have people coming up with their reasons why you shouldn't, why you should do it their way, or why you shouldn't follow what your wisdom's saying, or that sort of thing. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to them, because oftentimes people have, as well as having love and care and compassion, and often having experience and skill and that sort of thing, there may also be like a kernel of truth in what they're saying. So there may well be something useful and valuable to listen for. But ultimately, you have to do what makes sense to you. You have to do what makes sense to you. And how it looks to me is that the path from chaos to clarity is one of seeing who you really are and how your experience is created, following those enthusiasms, and inspirations, and dealing as elegantly as possible with the obstacles that arise as you go along. You know, we live in the most extraordinary time to be alive. There have never been more opportunities to create and to allow your own passions and inspirations to take form in this world. It's a wonderful time to be alive, and who you really are is capable of so much more than you think. You're capable of so much more than you think, because you are so much more than you think. So you can relax and trust in the knowledge that you are connected to that source of guidance and wisdom and intelligence, that you're built for reality, and that you can be who you are and do what you love. You don't have to take any shit from anybody. And that's a good place to leave it, I think.
Yeah, it is a very good place. And that was really, really beautiful. Jamie's already mentioned that he has that he's written a book, but he's written several books, and all of the links to those books, if you'd like to read about those and read more about Jamie, you can do that. Just follow the link underneath the video. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being here. And I think we'll just leave it at that for now. So thanks so much, everyone. And I'm just going to say goodbye.
Bye-bye.